basics that anyone knows. In general, no, they have all. Like when I was an intern over there the year before, they were all like freaked out because I wanted to wash them. Like they did not have and I wondered what they had like recreational. Oh, that's in Spain. Well, there's something to that. They do, it's, you know, it's weird, but it made me something good. I don't want much into like my house. But apparently, it is, they do smell, the kids smell pretty good there. I mean, 'cause I think wine is pretty sensitive. I think aromas or odors come up together. What would you want?
We're up. Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 17th, 2025 regular meeting of the St. Helena Planning Commission. Commissioner Lopez, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order. Secretary Gamero, will you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Lopez,
Here.
Commissioner Furtick,
Here.
Commissioner Anderson is absent, Vice Chair Warner,
Here.
and Chair Pont.
Here. That takes us to public forum. This is an opportunity for the public to address the commission on items of interest to the public that are not listed on the agenda. Because of restrictions imposed by the Brown Act, the commission may not engage in discussion nor take action on matters not described on the agenda. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to address on an issue not on the agenda? Seeing none, that takes us to consent items. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of considering alternative action, for extended discussion, or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. We have one tonight, approval of the minutes of May 20th. Is there any member of the commission that wishes that item to be pulled for further consideration? Is there any member of the public here tonight that wishes that item to be pulled for further consideration? Seeing none, then a motion would be appropriate.
I move to approve the minutes for May 20th, 2025.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Secretary Gamero, tally the votes, please.
Vice Chair Warner,
Yes.
Commissioner Furtick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
and Chair Pont.
Yes. Item 5, which is public hearings, we have one this evening. A request to adopt a resolution approving the demolition permit to demolish an existing non-conforming 5,235 square foot dwelling and shed, and a major design review for the construction of a new 3,373 square foot, two-story, single-family dwelling with detached 257 square foot garage at 1443 Madrona Avenue in the medium-density residential zoning district. Open the public hearing and start off by asking if there's any member of the commission has had any ex parte contact on this item. No. Hearing none?
Well, I have to say that I grew up knowing the Flores family and went to a lot of events at that property since I was a kid. And just wanted to say that the family that lived there came from the same town as my father, and they rented there for many years and were able to be offered to purchase it, and and rented the other side. So it was a very very beautiful place to hold gatherings at times. So it was, just wanted to let you know that as I saw it and I saw the lemon fence and everything, it's something that I heard, that historical perspective was there. So it's a very beautiful thing.
Thank you. No one else? No? Okay, then I would ask for the staff report, please. Director DeRosa.
Hello. Good evening, Commission. Director DeRosa, it's my pleasure to introduce our contract planner, Larissa Alchin, who will be presenting this case tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioners. The item before you tonight is for a demolition permit and major design review at 144 Madrona Avenue. The property is zoned medium-density residential. It's MR zoning district. The site is 15,960 square feet with 84 feet of public street frontage on Madrona Avenue and at the intersection of Spring Mountain Road. The existing structure is considered non-conforming and is a bit deteriorated and damaged. The structure features 10 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. The demolition permit is required due to the age of the structure. And this is just a brief street view looking from Spring Mountain. And the existing site plan for the property. You can see the large structure is the primary dwelling and then the shed in the rear. As I mentioned, the zoning district and the parcel size, according to the historic resource evaluation, the property is not recommended eligible as listing as historic, not qualified as a historic resource pursuant to CEQA. The major design review permit is required per the St. Helena Municipal Code for a single-family home. This slide is for the proposed site plan, which includes a 3,373 square foot, two-story, single-family home with a detached 257 square foot garage. The project includes a one-story section on the west elevation, which effectively minimizes the bulk there on that side property line. The proposed detached ADU that you're seeing as that gray section in the rear is just proposed. It's not subject to design review and not under review tonight. The project also includes an uncovered terrace as well as some patios in the rear and a swimming pool. The project demonstrates compliance with all the development standards. Oops. Including the lot coverage, gross floor area, the primary building height, as well as there's an exemption for the cupola, and the minimum setbacks for the zoning district. The proposed primary dwelling would include an open concept kitchen, living area, dining room area, 4 bedrooms, an office, pantry, laundry room, den, wine storage room, and 5 bathrooms. The materials proposed are largely reflective of the Mediterranean architectural style. including the stucco and the dark trim along the windows and doors, the wrought iron balcony, as well as there's a proposed 42-inch high stone wall or column along the driveway, and then the lemon hedge, which is existing. They also are complying with the visible front entry, which is required for the zoning district. You can see from the image there, it's visible from the street frontage. And this is just a slide showing you the front and side elevations. You can see on the west elevation there that one-story wing that is along that side property line. And then this slide, I wanted to touch on the rear elevation, but also the covered porch. So during the project review, there was some confusion about whether the covered porch and balconies and patios should count towards gross floor area. Staff initially advised the applicant, the architect, to remove the solid roof over that second-story porch area. And so they redesigned the plans to replace that with a trellis, which is what you're seeing here. And this is the current plans that were submitted. But since that time, which was last Friday, staff received a zoning interpretation from the city attorney clarifying that the covered balcony, porches, decks are not included in that gross floor area. And I believe that memo has been prepared or provided to Planning Commission as well. So that is why we are proposing a couple conditions of approval for the project, which would allow the applicant to cover the second-story porch as originally proposed in the plans, and also to require that they update the gross floor area calculation on the plans when it comes in for a building permit. This is touchy. There we go. Okay. Landscape plan. So the landscape plan is will remove a substantial amount of existing impervious surface on the property. There is an existing lemon hedge that will be maintained, as well as a poplar on the south side property line. New raised beds and landscaping are proposed. They will be planted kind of in a Mediterranean garden with citrus, persimmon, pomegranate, olive, Chinese pistache, Italian buckhorn, rosemary, sage, and thyme. There's a small turf area proposed around the pool. The project features a well-connected pedestrian circulation system connecting the dwelling, the garage, and the rear yard areas. The project does comply with all the development standards of the MR zoning district, as well as the design standards of the municipal code, which include second-story step back, the building orientation, wall planes, exterior building materials, and the parking standards. The project was also reviewed by Public Works for the water neutrality report. They've accepted the current plan. It will be reviewed again during the building permit phase. Thank you. Let me go back one more. There we go. Staff was able to make the findings for the demolition permit, which was to evaluate whether or not the property could be listed as historic. And we were able to make all the findings for the demolition permit. Staff was also, can you forward one more? Thank you. Staff was also able to make all the major design review findings, which are related to consistency and compatibility with the neighborhood and the general plan. Specifically, a few of the general plan policies are listed here and in the staff report. The proposed home and site improvements have been professionally designed. and they are compatible with the surrounding area. The last finding here is for materials, textures, and colors. The single-family home would be finished with a variety of materials and appropriate to the Mediterranean architectural style, which is considered consistent and complementary to the surrounding residential development. You forward one more? Okay, thanks. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission determine that the project is exempt from CEQA, according to sections 15303 and 15304, as well as accept the findings and approve the attached resolution with the following modifications that you see here. The amended COA, which is number 26. We had the wrong code section identified there, and then the 2 additional conditions of approval for the patio. And I think that's it. I think my last slide is questions. I do know that the applicant is here, the architect, the property owners are also here, so.
Any questions of staff at this point? Vice Chair Warner.
I just wanted to, maybe Mario knows, I thought we were updating our water neutrality policy, and I just want to get, I know it doesn't necessarily apply, because if we haven't updated it, we haven't updated it, but do you have any sense of schedule on that?
Update on the update?
Yeah, update on the update.
Certainly. We just talked about this today. Eric will be pursuing an update to the policy in conjunction with our consultant. We're looking for a fall timeline to bring it to the commission to review.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff at this point? No?
I don't know if this is time to talk about the change in the interpretation. Was there questions for staff, or would that be later?
I think you could ask them now if you wanted to.
So I've read the legal memo, and I appreciate that, and concur with our legal counsel on the interpretation. But I also wanted to kind of talk through a little bit of the issue of what the next step is, something going back to city council. And since we're advisory, if the city council were to change the interpretation by approving a change in the drafting of the zoning code, that could potentially change the results on this application, because city council also is subject to approving this application, or this application vested such that what we approve tonight would be grandfathered for any change. Is that correct? Okay. But if the city council were to change the interpretation by changing the code, not changing the legal interpretation, but changing the code to be more specific regarding, bulk and things like that. To my understanding, physically, this covered porch really doesn't add to the bulk of the way the building sits on the lower story, does it?
Well, just,
The second story porch.
yeah, so, and just to be clear, so there's a covered space on the first floor that never was an issue because the project still met the gross floor area, even counting that. But but with the second story area, since the project was already at the maximum gross floor area, under the prior policy interpretation, it would have caused the project to exceed, which was why, what you saw in the drawings, it was not included as covered. In light of the memo that we received from BBK, we are giving the flexibility to the applicant through that COA to cover it and utilize that interpretation from the memo.
So go ahead, Chair, 'cause if you have a thought on
Sure.
this, because I'm trying to kind of.
So I think for clarification for both Commissioner Warner and myself, either way, it adds no more floor area. It's just whether it's trellised or covered. Correct?
Correct. We won't be
I mean,
adding it to the balance sheet.
I mean, in a physical sense.
In a physical sense, if we go with the current interpretation of the code, having it with a covered roof does not change the gross floor area.
I would like to add one thing. I sat on the committee that looked at the zoning code when it was being written. And the reason why it was written the way it was written was that we were beginning to get projects that covered large fractions of the lot with covers, porches, patios, whatever, that were solid. And that didn't make much sense for a couple reasons. It didn't make much sense in terms of permeability, and it didn't make much sense in terms of consistency with the ambiance of the city, right? So we did dial back down on it, but apparently we made some errors when we did. I don't know which way the council will
Okay,
jump.
I found this on the web for so.
Sorry.
I don't
Legal
know,
input.
I don't know
where
which,
that
I
came
don't know
from.
which way the council will jump when they go to fix this.
Right.
But
Apologize.
it's a consideration I think they should pay some attention to, you know, what eventually leads to, you know, large swaths of a lot being covered.
So, may,
Well, let me just
Go ahead,
add,
go ahead, Maya.
you were absent for the meeting when we actually brought the zoning amendment to the planning commission, and we, in fact, when, you know, we had the arguments in favor of it, against it, and so I did bring up the past history with the zoning code change to, you know, reduce scale and massing, and that interpretation supported that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I am very aware of the background of it.
Okay,
And,
good.
but to Commissioner,
But there's nobody on the council
Right.
anymore who is,
but
unfortunately.
to Commissioner Furdyck's question, if the issue is exactly what you said, which is bulk and ambiance, first of all, I understand that if the prior interpretation applied, they still could have a covered second-story porch that would.
No, because it would have
exceed the
caused,
floor
it would have
space.
caused them
Okay.
to exceed.
So,
Mhm.
but if you're looking at how a porch looks, precisely with what you said, in terms of wraparound porches or, you know, porches that add to the lower story bulk, this porch is second story
Second
that is
story.
no larger than the first story bulk. So from a policy standpoint of bulkiness, if that's probably not the right word, but for
Massing, perhaps?
massing, maybe that's better, is if you even wanted to address the massing, this second-story porch, at least in my view of it, doesn't add to the massing. So that even if you wanted to frame a zoning code floor area restriction, this type of porch, it appears to me, and this is all, may be somewhat subjective, is that it doesn't significantly contribute to massing. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that.
Any other?
That's all I
Any
had.
other
Thank you.
questions? I've got a couple. First, was this site ever counted as low-cost housing? Even though it was it ever counted as such?
We did look into that. If it was rented, there was no legal deed restriction for affordable that the city was aware of. It might have been rented to family, friends, you know, but there's no record of it. And I believe it's been vacant for the last 2 years also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was the other half of the question, how long has it been empty?
Yeah.
So we won't have HCD coming after us with tear gas and torches for this one. Okay. Second thing, and this is a little nitpicky. On one of your slides, you said staff was able to make the findings. Staff doesn't make findings. Staff recommends findings to the commission. I would just like the words to follow exactly what staff can and will do, right? Okay, thank you. That's it. Unless there's any other questions? All right, this is a time for the applicant to present the project or to speak to us about the project if they care to. No requirement that they do so. Dan?
Hello, good evening. I'm Daniel Hale, 1851 Madrona Avenue. I designed and am coordinating the project team for this project. On behalf of myself and the Lesrado family who is here tonight, I would like to extend our sincere thanks to Contract Planner Alchin, City Attorney Walsh, and the other members of the St. Helena City staff for their meticulous and sensitive work on this application. It's truly been a pleasure to work with them throughout this process. We believe that the project statement dated September 4th, 2024, and which is included in this application, provides a thorough and accurate overview of our approach to configuring both the scope and details of this project. We hope it reflects our shared commitment to thoughtful planning and respectful collaboration. Project team and I are excited to move forward and begin the next phase of this effort so that the Lozerato family can soon begin their enjoyment and stewardship of 1443 Madrona. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and thanks for your time and consideration.
All right, at this point, does any commissioner have any questions of the applicant? Or of any further questions of staff? No? All right, thank you, Don. At this point, I'd like to invite anybody who wishes to speak for or against this project, who is not the applicant, please step to the podium. Is there anyone out there who wishes to speak for or against this project this evening?
Given the opportunity. Chris Phelps, 1420 Madrona, essentially across the street, more or less from the property. And I would just like simply to say, knowing both the owners and the designer, we're delighted to have such a project, which I know will be charming and completely incorporated in the feel of Madrona as we see it. We've been on Madrona for over 40 years, and we're just delighted to have them even closer. So thank you for.
Hearing none. Is there any new questions by the commissioner raised by the public testimony? No. All right. Hearing none, I will then close the public hearing part of this and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Vice Chair Warner.
I'd make a couple of comments. I support this. I appreciate the work done by staff on this. One of the things that is, I think, notable about this is that this is, as noted by the staff presentation, is a currently non-conforming, but in my mind, even more important, neglected, deteriorated, and damaged residential unit. I appreciate hearing from the neighbor across the street because one of the things that I think is so important in this city is that we might have an existing use or existing structure that's deteriorated or not being used. We had one a few meetings ago that we talked about. And so I very much value the fact that new owners are coming in or even existing owners who are going to be renovating or replacing a building like this, because I think that's a very positive part of our planning process, is to encourage that we have occupied buildings, that they be upgraded and that they not deteriorate. And in this case, it's actually being replaced by a smaller building overall, even though we might, somebody might have some, massing concerns about it. Certainly compared to the existing building, this is a big win-win in my opinion.
Commissioner Furtick.
So I probably pass this property 5 to 10 times a day. So I'm a neighbor. I live down the street on Spring Mountain Road. And whether I'm driving by or cycling or walking, I pass this property. So I appreciate that the new owners are enhancing this property, and as we appreciate, enhancements to to properties around our community, and it's I think Dan Hale does a great job, and has done a great job with other properties throughout our community. So I appreciate that, very much. I think this will be an enhancement for our community. So thank you for that. And I support what's being done in our neighborhood, and it seems, certainly to scale a size down compared to the property that exists currently. So I think it will fit the property size, and it's done in good taste. The only thing I would encourage the applicant to consider is artificial turf. It took my husband a couple years to convince me to put artificial turf in our home, and I do not regret it whatsoever. Of course, it's water-wise as well. So that is my only other comment.
And she does not own any stock in an artificial turf
And I
company.
do not own, yes, in full transparency, I do not own, and I only have a little turf, but I would highly consider that.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, so I've been around that property, like I said, I was 8 years old, and it's kind of sad in a way, in the way the family, Joel Felipe Flores passed away during COVID, and the mother went to live with the daughters in Napa and different areas, and but what's interesting about that place is that there used to be a trailer park where they moved in the early 70s, and they got to rent that, whatever, bottling factory, whatever it was, and friends or family or other people got to live there renting for many, many years. I forget how many years they were when they were offered to buy it from the seller. And when you think about Latinos being able to own in Santa Helena, you barely can make the bills, right? I mean, even right now, as the water bills go up, it's tough. So that's why you didn't see any improvements. There just wasn't enough when they were raising 5 kids and everything. But there was a lot of love, a lot of stuff going on there, a lot of parties that we held, traditional ones. And I think as a custom home builder, it's an amazing new property. And like I said, some things change in life, and I think the new family did a great design. I like all the light that comes into the new place. I like that you kept that front hedge of lemons because Felipe loved it, and when it was properly, given the fertilizer and everything, it bloomed and it gave all these, tons of lemons, and I'd never seen that either. Who would have thought, right? They thought, well, let's use a hedge that actually.
Are those lemons available to the public?
Well, that'll depend on the new owners, but I bet one family can't consume all of them. I mean, you get tons.
I am
does
guilty
anybody
of
patrol the lemon
taking one or
trees
two.
You might have some neighbors that go by there and some disappear along the way. But as a custom home builder, on the other side, I do cheer the whole planning of the new design, and very impressed that you communicated with with all your neighbors. It does match a lot of double-story buildings around the side with the different types. I mean, it's modernized, but yet it blends in with more of the traditional vintage style home. So I applaud the project, and I think it's going to be a grand home to the new family. And as far as, could it be a space for other people? We've been battling space for a lot of people, and obviously it's, to me, it's more about who really wants to beautify and work with the city and making a better place. And I do believe it's going to enhance the whole neighborhood. And like I said, the only reason they didn't beautify it is there wasn't the means to be able to kind of do that. But now that there is, I applaud you on the effort put in and the design, and that everybody around you had nothing but positive things to say. So good job.
I'd like to say I agree with all of you. It's a nice-looking project. It fits in with the area around it. I was interested to read the history of the lot, and we can all see what the idea of zoning has done. I wouldn't want to live next door to a bottling plant, but don't have to worry about it anymore. The applicant actually could have chosen to remodel what they had there. It would have been very expensive, but it would have been able to keep all 5,000 square feet. I'm glad they decided not to do that. On the other hand, there's one niggling thing about this project. And it's not this project in particular, it's these kinds of projects in general. It's another large, expensive house in St. Helena. We're being killed by our own success. And I've got no animus towards the applicant at all. I wish them good luck with their nice-looking project, but just we're getting so many of these, we are not getting what we need. And that's all I've got to say on this. I suppose unless there's any other comments, it's time for motion if somebody cares to make one. The recommendation is up there.
I'm happy to do so, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I move that the commission determine that the project is exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15303 and 15304, and accept the required findings and approve the attached resolution granting the demolition permit, major design review approval for the proposed construction on the property located at 1443 Madrona Avenue in the MR zoning district with the following amendment. Amend COA number 26 to delete SHMC 17.116.030 and replace with 17.22.030.G.2.A, and add the following COA to the resolution, quote, as part of the building plan check for this design review proposal, PL 24-054, the applicant may include a roof over the second-story porch pursuant to the legal memo from the city attorney dated June 13th, 2025, which states that the current zoning code interpretation is that covered porches, balconies, and patios do not count towards gross floor area, end quote. And finally, add the following COA to the resolution, quote, prior to submittal for building plan check, the site plan calculation sheet shall be updated to reflect that the proposed maximum gross floor area is 3,430 square feet, end quote.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Commissioner Furtick, thank you. Secretary Romero, will you tally the votes, please?
Vice Chair Warner,
Yes?
Commissioner Furtick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
and Chair Pont.
Yes, thank you. This item is concluded. That takes us to item 6, scheduled items. We have none. Department reports. Director DeRosa. We can delay here a few seconds.
Okay, so let's talk about the upcoming schedule for Planning Commission meetings. So our first meeting on July 1st is being canceled, and also I know Commissioner Anderson will be out, so there's actually no quorum. And then regarding, well, part of my director report today is to talk about recognizing our two commissioners here that our term is up at the end of the month, and so of course that triggers naturally the city council appointment process, and so the mayor's informed me that they are actually going to move the appointments to July 22nd, and so that would mean that we wouldn't have a full commission until August with all 5 seats filled. So I just wanted to let you know in terms of process, and we will do the election of officers at that time once we have the full commission. So in the spirit of changing of the guard and recognition of terms served, Commissioner Lopez's term is up at the end of the month, and I know also you've applied to do another 4 years with us. So we are wishing you well on coming back and joining us in August. And then secondarily, we have Chair Pont, who is, as many of you know, this is his last meeting today. And so I wanted to I have a couple of words to share, and I have a certificate of appreciation to give to you, and also here's the big kahuna here. before we finish tonight, for something you to put on the mantle, or because since 2017, that's a good go of it, as they say. But Commissioner Pont, or Chair Pont, well, first of all, I remember meeting you. I think you were on my interview panel for back in 2020 when they were hiring a director. And so I just have a few words to share from my tenure of working with you, as the Planning Commission Vice Chair and then moving into the chair role. Some of your accomplishments, I went back and wrote down because I know you like things quantified. And for those of you that weren't here during all of his tenure, I want to recognize that you attended 10 zoning code subcommittee meetings, and that spanned over many months of and long meetings going through a lot of detail, and really appreciate your attention to detail, specifically on that project. And then if that was enough, then there were also 5 joint Planning Commission City Council meetings to discuss the zoning code. And I know Vice Chair Warner, you were a part of that. And then concurrently with the zoning code, we also had the housing element update process going. And so we had 2 public meetings on that, plus Planning Commission meetings before it went to council. And then along in that same time period, we were also navigating the Hunter subdivision and also an EIR, and you helped chair us through that process, which was very contentious with the community, and all the strategy sessions of how to, handle the meeting dynamics and the overflow room. And I just, appreciate your care and concern for the community throughout all of these very huge milestone projects for the community. And that also speaks of all the commissioners that have been participating in helping us move the heavy lift of development in this community that, really leaves a lasting footprint and legacy, the decisions that you make as the commission. And then an incredible number of design reviews, use permits, parcel maps, too numerous to quantify, so I didn't do that. And to cap off, I guess, my closing comments, I went back to the blueprint of, the League of Cities and, the ideal planning commissioner. And what does it say is a good staff-commission relationship? It's built on mutual trust and respect. And achieving that, it means coming to meetings and having reviewed the materials prepared by staff. It means asking questions of staff in advance and alerting them to concerns you have or that you intend to raise during the meeting. It means if you disagree with a staff recommendation, state specific reasons for your decision. This helps staff draft findings and support your decisions. Clearly communicate to staff what the commission needs in order to make well-informed decisions. If material is not being presented in an understandable way, work with staff to make changes. John, I can unequivocally say that during my tenure, you have achieved the high marks of these areas of planning commission governance, and I thank you for that. I would like to invite my fellow commissioners to add any words of appreciation in closing.
I'd be happy to add, and I just want to make sure that I understand your status, because I'd like to go to court to enjoin you from not seeking a waiver from the term limits because I don't know what I'm or anybody else going to do on this commission without you. And it's a but no, and I think what has been, I agree with everything, Maya, you said, and I came onto the commission more recently, and I saw John basically go through what I consider to be the hallmark of good governance in the public arena. And good governance means, as Maya said, understanding what the framework for your decision making is, not make it up as you go along, not try to freelance, but understanding that the policies and the regulations and the rules and principles are set in the public arena, such as through the zoning code and the building code, and also in the general plan process and the housing element. And I learned an incredible amount, John, just following your guidance on the details. But the details were always, you were always presenting them because they were based on principles of good governance for the community. You could always count that on something John would say about a particular application, and you'd think about it. He'd already thought about it, right, by the way, probably long before it ever dawned on me or anybody else. He would basically have something in mind that was specific in the application, but when you would pull the string back, it was based on a very good governance principle, and you always stuck to that. You weren't going out raising issues that were somehow out in left field or not based on policy or principles or things that were really part of the community guidance to us. So I really valued learning from you. And again, I do, despite what I'm saying that's nice, I do think we should bring a lawsuit to ensure that you stay on the commission. So would you object if you were enjoined to stay on the commission? See, I got back to him. He threw the gavel back over to me. I threw it back over to him. So I want him to accept that we could enjoin him for, no, seriously. So I'll let others speak, but I really have appreciated all your guidance and everything I've learned from you.
Anyone else?
Yes, well, John, I just want to thank you for your leadership and your mentorship this past year. I learned so much and wish I had more time with you because the learning curve, as you know, is really high. And you know this code so well, and so you're always pointing me in the right direction, which I appreciate so much, and also the way, you know, you think about the issues because, you know, like Commissioner Warner said, you're always one step ahead of us. So, and it makes us think. I just think the community's been really lucky to have you serve on the committee for so long, and I hope you continue to serve our community, in one way or another, because we benefit, from your, attention to detail and knowledge and insight and communication, about the issues before us. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I also don't know. It's kind of a rough go at it because you've served exceptionally well at looking at the small details that probably it takes a lot of experience to catch. As I looked at things and I came here, and then all of a sudden you bring up an issue that there's some contradiction. It was very impressive and inspiring. And I think we're going to muddle around a little bit to get things done. And there's so much to get done. And you're going to be truly missed, but I'm pretty sure we'll all be reaching out one way or another to see if we're thinking straight. But it's been a pleasure working with such a community member and a leader and that knows so much knowledge, and it was kind of like it's inspirational to come to this board because of the great mixture we all had going. It's like kind of getting the perfect band together finally, and then darn, what the heck, what happened here? What's happening here? And like I said, I'm just barely trying to apply for a second go at it if I'm selected, but you've served so much and so much time, and I really appreciate it, all the guidance, and I think the city does well. It's shown what all you've given, and hopefully you could give back in some manner with your whatever spare time you have, because we're going to need it in all areas of trying to fulfill those problem areas that you very much clear that we have going on here with the city. But thank you for your service.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you, both staff and the commission. This has actually been fun to do 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time. I forget about the other 5%. At any rate, a good commission is the sum of its parts. And if it has problems with staff or has trouble with a particular commissioner, it just isn't going to gel, it's never going to work right. And this has been what I think of as a good commission. And it's not just on me, it's on all of us. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you for helping this move forward in a direction that we all think is good for the community and good for us. So, I leave you knowing the ship is righted, it's going to sail on. I don't have to worry about it. Thank you.
Well, let me stand over there and get your picture. If I can do that. You go help.
Now, if it still had staff for the star, they would be here, but it's just Jesse.
Chris is gonna take, I was just about to say, Chris is gonna take a picture for Jesse. Jesse will.
So you hold it that way there.
that way.
Let me grab the certificate.
That's a good idea.
Oh, I got that guy. Okay. Yeah. By the flag. Okay.
Flag.
Instead of the TV.
I kind of thought you should have. I kind of thought you should be where the gavel is, but okay, because we could make sure you keep the gavel. It's too.
Do one at a time. We'll look at it.
Doesn't change it. You can do yours at the same time. Enough time. There we go.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure working
Thank
with
you.
you.
Hold your.
And I presume we're through department reports. That takes us to agenda forecast. As always, the city website has a list of projects that are in process, and this is also the time for any planning commissioner to ask for.
Clarification.
Ah.
So we have no planning meetings until August?
So we don't have one on the 1st, and then the second meeting in July. If we have items and a quorum, we technically could have that, which would be 3, right?
You're going to be short 2. So
Yeah,
you
and-
need everybody else who's
Okay, so
currently
we could-
assigned
that's
the
right.
commission to show up.
Okay.
So if somebody's sick or out of town, you just have 2. You need 3.
Okay, I think we went through this.
I had on a planning agenda, and I know we've talked about this, Maya, and I wanted to make sure our fellow commissioners also have a say on this. I know there is a planned joint city council planning commission meeting on housing on August 19th?
I believe that's correct.
19th. And I understand that one of the presenters will be a lawyer who will present the legal position on why the city has virtually no power over new housing because of the state laws. And Maya and I have discussed this, and I've also discussed it briefly with the mayor. I would like the planning commissioners to have some input into the agenda for that meeting. And most importantly, from my personal view, it should not be all about telling the community they don't have any power over housing. I'd like to have the meeting be more broad about what can this community do to create a consensus for more housing. What needs to be done that doesn't require the community to basically be told, we're going to shove housing down your throat through housing opportunity sites. And I appreciate that the law is the law, is law what it is, and you and I have talked about this too, John, but I really would like us to have some input into the agenda so that it's not just a long presentation by a lawyer telling us all about how the California housing laws now strictly limit community sovereignty, if you will, over housing. So I don't know, Maya, if you have anything more to report on that, but I wanted to make sure I got that out into the open for my fellow commissioners to know.
Yeah, I did pass that on to the, excuse me, the city manager, and he advised that you just directly speak to the mayor, which sounds like you did. And so I think the city manager said he was going to leave it up to the mayor on how he wanted to shape the agenda. We still have yet to get the agreement with the law firm signed. So, and that's through Ethan's office. So, anyway, we have a little bit of time.
Well, I also appreciate that you, from your perspective, very good perspective, you and staff have a perspective on this too. So there are a number of issues in housing that you've dealt with, as we just discussed, in terms of your history with John and for, with longer than most of us on the commission. So I hope you're having input into it too, to the agenda. So I think that's so important. So that's my only item. I know we have some other major projects on the drawing board that we'll have on the agenda at some time down the road too. But that was my only input on future agendas.
I would like to, I don't know where this fits, if it fits with us, but I think I passed around to some folks some things that are going on in Napa, and of course other communities as well, where it's a multi-use development project, and things where there's housing, and retail and public space, and how do we fold housing into another project? And granted, we don't have as much land and space, but how can we make it attractive? Because that's to me a much more attractive project than just housing in some ways, and maybe more attractive to developers. So how do we go about, because when I think about how we talk to the community about housing, I don't even, without money, how do we talk to the community about housing if it's not folded in with something else? How do we attract housing developers if we're not offering something like, something else that brings, income and revenue, and I don't know, because other communities are doing it. Napa's doing it. So I don't know.
Good point, and I think part of the downtown specific plan framework was intended to actually look at multi-use too, at least in a certain way, which is good, really, because you can combine commercial with residential and certain structures where it's available.
We now have a downtown zoning district specifically for those kinds of developments. Also, somebody could come in and, do an overlay on something that may or may not, be in the downtown. So we've got ways of doing it. We just don't have, at this point, developers who are interested or deep enough pockets ourselves to make it go. But the council is aware of our problems. They're more than aware of our problems, and we've got a community development director whose remit is partially to do just exactly that.
Well, and the genesis of the whole mixed-use discussion, predates me of the 2019 general plan. That's when actually the whole concept of, hey, the city actually should really have a mixed-use zoning designation. So that was the first, very good strategic policy decision that was made by the council and the community. Like, yes, they're acknowledging, and these are the areas where it can be. And then, of course, on the heels of that, we did the zoning code update because we didn't have a zoning mixed-use designation to implement the general plan, which we finished that process in, as you know, in 2023. So there, and it's very clear in that the zoning standards there that it's to be mixed use. It's, a certain amount of residential, not less than this, and commercial. But having experience working in Southern California, watching Mr. Gilmore single-handedly try to redevelop the old bank district downtown and turn 100% commercial, old Renaissance-style bank buildings into is hugely driven by market and having a savvy developer that, like in his case, that was a National Register district, so he could leverage tax credits, right? So there's a certain point where there's a market dynamic that's going to be the final straw of, like, we can our job is, get out, make the regulations as streamlined as possible. And, the central area plan in Healdsburg, which is the center and the epicenter of the Mill District project, that didn't happen by happenstance. The city did the right thing. They went and said, hey, this is an underutilized lumber yard. Yes, it has historic resources. We're going to go and actually lay out the red carpet, and we're going to do the CEQA. Here it is. And yes, you still have to go through an entitlement process, but because the city had the foresight to say this much housing in this area, this much commercial, but without that, and what I've been able to convince the council is that we need to do that, but we need to say this is our downtown, this is where this is our epicenter, this is where we want to attract development. So how are we going to streamline that process? How are we going to make it so clear? So we're still in the infancy, as you saw in my recent update in that process, but that's what we need to do to show that we're open for business.
Which is,
Yeah.
it's a very, very good point, because you need to lay out the welcome mat, and that takes
Right.
affirmative action, but that is necessary but not sufficient, because you got to have the money. You got to attract the developer that can actually make the projects work. And I think there's a lot of folks who think, well, if we just throw out the welcome mat, everybody will come. But it's a lot more than that. But you have to do the welcome mat,
We have to do that.
but that isn't necessarily going to mean that they come. So I
You
think
can even
that's,
have a nice welcome mat and nobody shows up.
right, that's right. That's just like my house.
Doesn't yours say go away?
No, I love my welcome mat.
Welcome, turn around, now turn around.
That's right. By the way, I had, on another topic that's related to that, if we had any, and maybe I missed this, any input from our city council on the type of voluntary approach to the working with the residents and the developer on the Spring
Oh,
Street?
right.
You're talking about the ad hoc committee for the
Yes.
townhome. So thank you for the reminder. I need to follow up with it's actually the city attorney was reviewing our red line draft. Thank you both for your contributions. And I know he's been sidelined with a number of things,
I
but
know,
I'll
it's been
check in with him tomorrow. Thank you for the reminder. And hopefully we can bring something back in.
That would-
That's
August.
right, because that was very interesting about the Napa project also, was that they had an ad hoc committee involved in working with the developer on that project.
Napa's been working on their downtown redevelopment for 30 years, and it's taken that long.
Does
you
take
know?
long.
That square.
Well, they're
that
making
square,
excellent
the latest
progress.
thing that's going to get redeveloped.
Yes.
But
I
you
mean,
gotta
that
start.
goes back to the 70s.
Right,
So
but you got to start somewhere too.
that clock tower, oh yeah. Well, it's not
I don't
the-
know if it goes, does it go back?
Yeah. That,
I
that
don't
clock
know.
tower was built in 1975 or 6. The one that they took down,
right.
that was there.
Mm-hmm,
So it's been a while.
yeah.
Nothing like an earthquake to focus you marvelously on redeveloping your downtown too.
That's what did it,
That's true.
Any,
having to
any-
renovate, and seismic it
yeah,
brought in the money, and then they brought in all those.
yeah.
Yep.
So it takes, redevelopment takes a long time. It's a long-term project.
The problem lies that as we build these beautiful custom homes, nobody wants what you guys are talking about. I mean, as it gets fancier, nobody wants the little shops and all the stuff. It really gets difficult because they think, I guess, it'll be more of a common town or something. It's really, I've thought about it, and then I see some proposals that'll bring in money and people vote them down. It's just the strangest thing, So it's not going to be easy, but somehow something's going to have to happen sooner or later. And it's better it happens more planned than unplanned. But I feel that that's the trouble, is that we have these great ideas that we think, well, this kind of incorporates a little of everything. The problem is then when you have to place it and build it, nobody wants it near these beautiful homes. And rightfully so, they've invested quite a bit of pennies in each one. You could see it.
And we're not alone in this. You talk about housing for a new generation, younger people.
Yeah.
It's, this is probably the first generation of younger people where it is not at all certain that their standard of living will be higher than their parents. And it's one of those things that I look at because of, I valued the fact that I kind of stood on the shoulders of my parents, and they helped me move up in the world. And I obviously helped my sons move up in the world, but there is nothing that guarantees that their standard of living and their ability to get a house will be the same, if not worse, than my wife and myself. And that's not a good situation.
Yeah.
But that's nationwide. Not, you know,
That's-
saying
yeah,
Lena
that's-
isn't going to solve the nationwide
No,
problem, but that's a
no.
huge problem for generations to come. But we can start. We can do some things ourselves just to at least try. So sorry, we're going from the mundane to the esoteric.
I know.
Okay,
worth talking
if
about.
there's
All right.
nothing else, we're
Congratulations,
at my
Sean.
favorite part for the last time. We're adjourned.
Yeah.
Now.